Good morning, everyone, and welcome in here on a Friday morning to the TDR Trade to Black podcast. Hope everyone had a great week. What a week it was. Had some big news, as we highlighted earlier this week, involving Measure 3 in Florida being accepted on the ballot for this upcoming fall election as well. What did you all think of the podcast on Wednesday with Congresswoman Nancy Mace? Very grateful that she took the time to meet up with us and basically gave us some direction towards our community as we look to see and talk to her more next week, along with some other big politicians. So we'll recap that, and then as well look at some of the stocks that had some big movement this week, including a lot of the Canadian cannabis companies. So let's jump into today's podcast. Welcome in TDR co-host Anthony Farrell. Hope you had a good week. And I'm still living off of quite a little bit of a high with Nancy Mace. That was great to have her on Wednesday, and learned a lot.
Yeah, it's been a great week. We got the win of the Florida Supreme Court, Nancy Mace, Tom Angel unblocked me. It's everything's on the up and up. Cannabis sector is never a dull moment.
That's nice. We need support amongst each other. Let's work together, not against each other. But Look, he's got a great platform, got some great info, and I think what we want to do next week is kind of mirror a lot of that information, only from a video aspect. So we had a conversation with Mr. Don Murphy yesterday to kind of get more prepared for next week, but it's going to be quite the week. And we basically got the schedule where a lot of these senators and congressmen and congresswomen are going to be, and should be quite the experience, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I think before I get into it, I kind of a lot of people yesterday looked at Tom's piece as a hit piece on the Florida market. It's Tom's job to report what DeSantis said.
100%.
He can't filter what comes out of DeSantis's mouth. So I know we're going to get into Florida, but I mean, one thing is that was not a hit piece.
I know.
That was Tom covering the news. And if you read the article and you went down to the actual second half of the article where he directly quotes DeSantis as saying the states will make their decision and he'll stand by that. I mean, the facts were all there. You just had to actually read.
Well, this is a great example. If you haven't seen the documentary, The Social Dilemma, this is a great example as to people only want to see and read what they want to see and read. And when you have actually unbiased, proper journalism, people's first reaction is it's a hit piece. And it's so far from the truth. It's Fridays. Let's welcome in the man himself, the closing reliever for the Boston Red Sox. Let's bring in Guap. Guap, look at that beard. You remind me of the closer in the late 90s, John Wetland, but he was a Yankee. Do you remember him?
Oh, yes. Of course. Yeah.
That man can get it done. Before there was Mariano Rivera, there was John Wetland. He was a heck of a closer. But
Mariano was one of the GOATs.
Just for everyone at home, whenever we're not talking cannabis stocks, and we're living the dream talking about cannabis stocks Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's a lot. We're talking sports in the back, so
yeah. Sure. I know we've gotten feedback, and based on our data metrics, we need to steer clear of sports. So I will drop sports and jump right into it. And let's go into segment number one, which is Into the Wire, headlining all the biggest headlines in cannabis this week. And no surprise, as we shift to the great state of Florida. And as we know, on Monday, Measure 3 was accepted, not passed, but accepted by the Supreme Court of Florida, which will include adult use cannabis on the election ballot this upcoming fall. When we broke this news on Monday, Anthony, both you and Dan basically said, let's not celebrate just yet, that there's people that are going to contest this. It appears 4 days later, 3 days later, it's already happening. You want to elaborate off of that?
Yeah. So, I mean, Monday was big. I mean, the announcement was amazing to see. It was one step forward. I mean, it was a big win. It wasn't the reason why that myself and a couple other people were saying that the price action would probably would be damp around that announcement. We've got 7 months actually, almost to the day, to wait for the vote. Once the people of Florida get to the polls and vote and pass this thing, then it's time for celebration. But as per DeSantis's rhetoric from yesterday, I want everybody to keep in mind, Missouri and Ohio, their governors that were GOP governors vehemently were railing against cannabis in a reefer madness tone leading up to the vote. The people spoke. There's adult use cannabis in Missouri. There's adult use cannabis coming online in Ohio. These are politicians that are very tactical, and they're speaking to their base.
Yes.
That is what DeSantis did that yesterday, not as some sort of condemnation on the Florida cannabis industry. I think he's going to get pulled for VP with Trump, or he's trying to speak to his base abroad and his base nationally, and the hardcore people in his base align with that message. But also, DeSantis has a very conservative view on women's rights and abortion, and people like myself that support DeSantis and a ton of Floridians that support DeSantis don't support him on issues like with his takes on women's rights and abortion and cannabis. And people don't vote for the party anymore. They vote on their own self-interest. I think you're not going to see a lot of language from him moving forward as it relates to cannabis. And I think Smart and Safe is going to get to work. The CEOs of the MSOs that are in Florida are going to get to work. And we wind up taking this thing out with above 60% come November.
VP, you think, right?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Guap. He's done his homework. I can't help but agree with everything he's saying, but
Anthony's living and breathing in Florida, so who am I from North Carolina, Virginia to weigh in here? But just to read the tweet from Tom Angel, I also rewrote the tweet, and I think it was a little more accurate. Tom Angel wrote, "Yikes, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis predicts voters will reject cannabis legalization on the November ballot, calling it radical and extreme, and arguing it would reduce the quality of life because the state would start to smell like marijuana." So I rewrote it and said, boom, hyperdimensional cyborg Guap predicts Florida voters will accept cannabis legalization on the November ballot, calling it diggity dope and the will of the people, and arguing it will enhance the quality of life because the state will maximize its chillaxation. Like, it's up to the voters now.
Yeah.
That's my point. And so people can say a lot of words. Also, just to go on the price action tip for just a minute here, S&P took a nice dump right at about the same time.
Yeah.
So yikes doesn't move markets. Overall markets also correlate a little bit, but it does amplify things a bit in cannabis land. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm just reading some of them. Makiko, hate Red Fridays, but gives opportunity to buy. Yes. What was this? 4.7 earthquake in New Jersey? What?
It's not a red Friday though. Everything's green right now.
All right. Did I read that correctly? A 4.7.
You. Oh, go ahead. I don't think it was a 4.7.
Was there an actual earthquake in New Jersey?
There was an earthquake I was reading New York, but I mean, I'm assuming William's probably reading something live right now.
Well,
yeah.
You highlighted both Missouri and Ohio, and along with Governor Ducey from Arizona. He had the same thing where basically the voters ignored back in 2020. But I do want to highlight Don Murphy, who commented on a tweet earlier this week, or I should say yesterday, where he actually thinks this story about DeSantis is actually helpful for the overall industry. And, as you said before, it's like a lot of these voters basically ignored. And more importantly, he said, quote, "It's one thing to collect signatures, but Kim Rivers and Trulieve can't get to 60% on their own. Too many in the cannabis industry appear to think the heavy lifting is over." So, end quote. So judging by this, again, this is far from over. But like you said, Anthony, the approval rate is very strong. And if history repeats itself, there's some great state examples that show that the voters within individual states, including Florida, very much want this to happen. Go ahead, Guap.
Yeah, I was just going to say, focus on the polls. Shout out to Meta Jawbone, who really knows this stuff in Florida as well. And he listed out all the polling percentages of how high this polls. So if you go back the last few years, starting in 2022 and coming to today, the numbers he cited are 76%, 70%, 60%, 67%. And a 57%er that was run by the opposition. So it polls pretty well. You shouldn't read too much into polls, but just realize that, this is going on the ballot. The people get to decide. It's going on the ballot with the abortion issue, which should help out a little bit as well. So, let the people speak, and DeSantis can flap his gums all he wants.
Yeah. I cut you off there. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Anthony, or no?
No. I mean, I think we've pretty much. I mean, there really isn't much more to say on Florida. I do just think though that the women's rights and the abortion ballot initiative does bode well for us. I mean, this election in November for Floridians will be about choice. It'll be about women's rights to choose, and it'll be about consumers wanting to choose to actually be able to legally consume and buy marijuana or cannabis. And I think those both bode well going into the election.
Body autonomy. You get to.
Yeah. It's simple. It's choice. People should have the right to choose to do what they want.
Yeah.
That's as long as it's not harming anybody else. I do think DeSantis, though, and I'm probably going to get heat for this, I do think DeSantis does have a point. I consume cannabis. I thoroughly enjoy cannabis, and I believe it should be legalized everywhere. The smell in public, though, is a problem. I mean, I don't like smelling like cannabis. I don't smoke in public because I'm respectful of other people that are around me, as I don't like smelling cigarettes, and cannabis is worse. But the public consumption issue does need to be visited and dealt with because we smell it in New York.
Yeah, but how advanced are these devices becoming more and more? Like I had Michael Wang on.
It's nothing. No. It's nothing to do with the devices. The vapes. No. Vapes, edibles, drinks. I mean, vapes don't smell. Joints and infused joints, which you can't get here yet, but you probably will be able to down the road. Joints, blunts, any sort of like one hitter or glass piece, like combusting flower. It's got a pungent smell to it. Just because I want to consume cannabis doesn't mean that the family that's sitting 6 feet away from me wants to be subject to that. And they have the right not to be subject to that as much as I have the right to legally purchase it. So, I mean, it's a respect and a common decency thing. But DeSantis and these SAM people, when we talk about public consumption, that is something that does need to be addressed. And I think until we have an actual answer to that, they do have a valid point.
How do you answer that? Do you know?
I don't have an answer to it as of right now.
Yeah.
You can't make public consumption zones in wherever. I mean, it's kind of just, as far as I'm concerned, it's a common decency thing. Like, I'm not going to smoke a joint on the street as much as I want to if there's kids or if there's a bunch of people around. It's just a respect thing.
But baby,
record it and put it out on Sunday. I think we just found our Sunday content here. I'm ready to go on that one.
Yeah. But baby, if you're on the fairway at number 6, it's time. Rochelle Alexander writes, greetings team. Yes. Christopher Browdy, the guys are dressed decisively casual today. Yes, we are. Is that Armani that you're wearing, Anthony? Armani hoodie?
No, it's not. This is Laura Piano, actually.
Laura Piano.
My blazers come from the thrift shop, so I got to
100%. This is 100% alpaca. Cashmere.
This is a hoodie that was formerly a John Varvatos store in Detroit, but they actually clothe all the Detroit Pistons. I like my clothes. All right, let's now shift to headline number 2. And I was trying to wrap my head around this, but it involves New York and some big news involving Albany Supreme Court judge and allegations questioning the legitimacy of adult use cannabis. Never a dull moment in this industry, no short of drama. What does this all mean, Anthony? What are we getting ourselves into here?
They kind of said the quiet part out loud. I mean, there isn't much to say here except for the fact that most of the New York cannabis industry and the regulations and everything that's been rolled out, I mean, it was borderline unconstitutional. It's what the lawsuits implied. It's what everybody's been implying from day one. But I mean, this isn't a step forward for New York. It's a fucking step back. I mean, this is. I'm done with New York. After this, to be completely honest, I don't care about New York until they have a complete overhaul of the system.
Their shit together.
They release new regulations. By the way, can you guys hear a jackhammer in the background?
Not really.
Or no?
No, we're good. Is it pretty loud?
Something's going on. I can hear it.
4.7 earthquake?
No. But yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say it. Curaleaf, the cannabis, Cresco, GTI. There's companies that have leverage to New York.
Yep.
There's companies that are doing well in New York and they're getting their footing in New York. I don't give a shit about New York until they redo this whole system and get it right. Until then, the headlines coming out of New York really don't do anything for me.
Yeah. New York.
We should get Jeff Schultz on. He was quoted in that article a few times. I know he's personally super invested. He's a lawyer. He's an operator. I would love to get him on here to talk about it more. I mean, everyone likes a slow motion train wreck, and this just gets weirder and weirder. And it was such a big market, such a huge opportunity. I really hope they can turn it around. And the first step is recognizing you've got a problem. So
yeah. Rochelle Alexander writes, make it mandatory for people to vape only on the street to respect others.
Like I said, let's debate it after. Let's record something about it. I'm excited.
I'm just gonna err on this. If you want the right to legally buy cannabis, you should have the responsibility to be a decent human being and not consume it where you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
They go hand in hand.
Yes.
Like, you don't see people walking around with beer or walking around drinking. I mean, you do in certain jurisdictions with open container laws, but it's not rampant.
You're not waiting for the light to turn green to cross the street at pedestrian corner while somebody's having 2 pints sitting on a corner. Social.
Hey, well, I see the chat's buzzing on this conversation. So if you want this conversation deepened into a video by itself, go ahead and throw up a 1 in the chat. That'll let us know that you guys want to see this topic expanded.
Yeah, good stuff, Mitch. 4.8 earthquake in New York. Charles.
Well, no, hold on. Happy Burns. I'm not saying I don't like the smell. I like the smell of cannabis. Whenever I'm smoking or combusting flower, like, it's a pleasant smell to me. I don't like smelling like it in public, and I don't like imposing it on other people. They're completely different things.
Anthony cares about cannabis legalization progressing, and he cares about other people, which is unbelievable. Not many do.
Yeah. Nice call, Mitch. We got a lot of ones
here. We're not going to get, I mean, we're not going to get, we're not going to get progress. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get progress for what we want if we don't have respect for what other people want, because we're not going to get progress here in a vacuum.
Happy Burns again. Also, as there is no expectation of privacy in a public setting law, some would go with your choice to go into public areas. I agree with you that we should be respectful of others. I share that sentiment. There you go.
And yeah, Christopher, I absolutely hate tobacco smoke. I absolutely hate tobacco smoke. I find it toxic.
Somebody actually wrote earlier how there's like smoking lounges in the state of Missouri. And speaking of lounges, I got an email this morning. That consumption lounge that you got a tour last year in November when we were out at MJ Biz, Planet 13th. Today is their official launch. And that's supposed to be the premier consumption lounge for the industry across the country. But I would have loved to have been there. We've been super busy and obviously heading to Washington. But we'll get some footage of that from the company and give you guys kind of a sneak peek look as to what that consumption lounge looks. But theater of the mind, you had a walkthrough. I was busy doing a few interviews while you were there. Do you remember kind of like what it looked like in the layout, Anthony?
They were hanging drywall.
Well, they were.
It was a box.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, he walked me through the plans, but it's going to look like a bar. It's literally going to look like a bar. Imagine a bar that has whiskey lockers, that has bar, that has seating, table. It looked really nice, but it's going to look like a bar. It's just all cannabis versus alcohol.
Yeah,
it's more of like a hangout too versus like a high social area.
Yeah, we got Dan the Chartman coming up in our next segment. It's Fridays, along with our greatest segment of the week, Mike Drops with Guap. This is the TDR Traded Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales, along with Guap and Anthony Varell. Happy Friday. It's been a great week for the industry. Regardless of how you look at this, the industry is steering in the right direction. Headline 3 now, involving hemp regulatory issues, and the head of the FDA could potentially be getting involved. Anthony, again, I'll go to you. What kind of issues are we looking at, and why is the head of the FDA potentially getting involved? What is this?
Because they need to revisit hemp. They need to revisit the Farm Bill. They need to revisit intoxicating hemp products. They need to revisit Delta 9. They need to revisit THC flower. All of these things need to be handled. What I'm most interested to see is not really the hemp part of this. I'm interested to see if the HHS recommendation around cannabis finds its way into the language of this meeting. That was the only reason that I thought it was relevant to bring it up.
Gotcha. Guap,
But
you
I
wanna add
think
to that?
I think hemp needs to be overhauled completely
Why? In what way?
because it's being sold without regulations right now.
It's another Sunday
And
show.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean hemp is I can go to a store right now and buy THC flower that it's not the same high as cannabis, but it's damn well close. And all I have to do is flash a driver's license, be 18, and they'll sell it to me right on the spot.
It's crazy.
If you light
Yeah.
THCA flower on fire, it turns into THC yay. That's
Correct.
I learned something new every single show with you, Guap.
why. They say decarb, but it's just put a lighter to it.
By the way, when we're in Washington, while we're out busy speaking to politicians, it's going to be mic drop with Guap on the street. I can't wait to see that segment, brother. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Make sure you go to the front of the White House. You'll get a few characters there. That concludes the Into the Wire segment number 1, highlighting the biggest headlines in cannabis here on a Friday of the TDR Trade to Black podcast. It's now time for segment number 2, one of the best segments we have throughout the week. It's Chart Time Talk with Dan the Chart Man. Cue the music, bitch. Happy Friday morning. How's your week been, sir?
Real good. How are you all doing?
Yeah, it's been
Doing good.
relatively a good week. We've had some busy guests on this week and getting geared up for a big week next week as we travel. But what a week it's been. Just another normal week that everything makes sense, where you've got news out of Florida and the Canadian companies decide to move. Everything makes sense, right, Dan?
Yeah, perfect. I mean, from a trader's perspective, it does. It's people like me want that volume and liquidity, and we'll go wherever the action is.
Yeah. Well, let's drum this up first. Let's look at Canopy Growth. What a week it had. I think it had at one point, if I'm correct, was it Tuesday or Wednesday this week, Anthony? It had $400 million in stock earlier in this week. So I think it was the next day following Florida. But what a week it was for them.
Yeah, this is the kind of move where, again, as a trader, it's cancel all the plans and just stay home and trade this volatility. And, I treat it like a game of hot potato where I do not want to be holding this company, when this move tops out. But there is plenty of opportunity in the meantime. And, we had a clear bearish reversal candle, very similar to the last one that led to daily consolidation. And it was a big enough pullback yesterday where we knew the most likely result of the next bounce will be an hourly lower high. And then once we break that low of yesterday, that daily consolidation is underway. And so from here, just like last time, we can just look back to a few days ago. All right, hourly RSI got right towards oversold. That marked the daily higher low. That's what bulls want to see happen again. That can keep the daily uptrend strong if that happens again. If we pull back a little bit more significantly, we got to worry about a potential head and shoulders. But at this point, it's just, all right, bring on Monday.
Yeah.
And can we set this daily higher low to keep the uptrend going? Because anything above 725 is a daily higher low.
All right. So watch that closely. Next up, we used to talk a lot about 6-7 years ago, and it's up 51% in the last 5 days. What's old is new again, Aurora Cannabis.
Yeah, another one where, again, I've traded ACB more this week than probably the last 3 years combined. And I loved it back in 2018, but same thing, volume climax, big upper wick, bearish reversal candle yesterday, and great bounce opportunity. We were playing the initial drop yesterday into that bounce, but it's time for daily consolidation. So same deal. Can hourly oversold, which is approaching, the next time I'm interested in a bounce here is if the hourly RSI gets oversold, which is possible today. But again, does that mark a daily higher low? If it does, the move can keep going. If it doesn't, it increases probabilities that we're topping out for a more prolonged period of time.
So does it surprise you that, when I look at this, just how this company, and I don't want to take anything away from it, but just the amount of attention based on a little bit of news, and you look at some of these companies and the attention that they got 5-6 years ago, that still seems to be top of mind awareness whenever there's any kind of influential news within the industry.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's extremely frustrating for the fundamental followers in the sector, but it just makes perfect sense from a trading perspective. If I'm a hedge fund and I want to be playing with, I want to trade $5 million of a cannabis stock today, I cannot do that on the US side of things. I can't, even with the ETF, it's not easy. The way that I enter and exit ACB, CGC with market orders and a lack of slippage and dollar size, it just cannot be replicated on MSOS or any of its underlying holdings.
Yeah.
And so they have to uplist. They will eventually someday. And when it does, you'll see the dollar volume of these names go, 5 times on average on a daily basis. And that's, as from a trading perspective, if you want the herd, if you want big money, it has to happen.
Yep, 100%. Well, let's keep on the Canadian bandwagon, and another company that has a huge following, SNDL, who reached a 52-week high this week.
Yeah, one of the better moves up for sure. Obviously, the top is set now, and what marked the top? The first gap up open. Remember, we were talking about Trulieve way back when, and it marked its top. That gap up, it's again, being a trader, you have to rewire your brain to do the opposite of what your instincts are. And when retail sees a gap up open, they say, yes, big gains, it's great. And our full-time trader says, gap up, I'm selling into that. I'm taking some off because we're likely to see some consolidation shortly after. Again, if there's news behind it, you can gap and run. But on a move like that, where the previous day you have just gone up, to the tune of 24%, and then by the open, you're up 30% from 2 days ago, it's a profit-taking signal because those kinds of gains have to see consolidation. So same deal, daily consolidation underway. Does hourly oversold mark the daily higher low? That's coming into play now. Bulls ideally want to see, it'll be right around the $2 level. Bulls want to see 2 psychological hold. Psychological orders often act as support and resistance because people congregate orders on those levels. But it looks like SNDL may be the first of these names to hit hourly oversold. And again, whether it happens today or Monday, that's the next bit of information we're going to get looking, a week ahead in these names.
Great. Good to know. Anthony Guap, feel free to ask any questions if you guys want, but helpful information to say the least. As well to our viewers, if there's any questions, any charts you want us to basically bring it up, let us know right now. We'll bring those up before Dan is off and running, trading for the remainder of the day. But next up, we have another company with a big following, High Tide.
Yeah, so volume, everybody likes High Tide on social media, and I keep saying it's not enough volume for me, and we are finally getting towards that volume. Yesterday and the day before, we put up $7 or $8 million traded, and my criteria is give me $5 million average a day. I'll start paying attention. So we're getting there. That's a good sign. It's also a good sign that we haven't broken the low of yesterday yet, while all these other higher listed names have. So I can say that there's some relative strength here today. And you can see it's very low volume. And when you're consolidating, bulls prefer low volume. You always want to see declining volume on consolidation, increasing volume on the move up. And it's all about that low of yesterday. So, it's definitely a win for the bulls today if 250 can hold. If not, it'll be the same thing. How do we respond to hourly oversold? Does it mark a daily high or low? But relative strength there today.
Good to know. Trulieve got some feedback now. They want to see that chart. Trulieve, Tilray, and the Cannabis are the 3 charts from some of our viewers.
So yesterday was again, you have some of those headlines, but a lot of people have their tunnel vision on when they follow the cannabis sector. If something's happening, always look at the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ because yesterday you can attribute yesterday's move. For me, it's all S&P 500 and NASDAQ. You look at, let's just pull up a side by side.
What are you looking for, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, when you're following the space? Like what are the things that need to be mindful of? Go ahead.
So for me, it's a red flashing signal in my brain whenever the 3 largest sectors in the S&P 500, which for me is tech, I use the NASDAQ, QQQ to follow tech. So QQQ, XLF Financials, XLV Healthcare. If all 3 of them are dropping to the low of the day at the same time, it's money leaving the market. This whole move up, it's been rotation. QQQ consolidates. The financial sector sees a leg up. The financial sector consolidates. Semiconductors and tech see a leg up. It's this systematic rotation that keeps things strong. When everything's dropping together, it's say, oh, this is unusual. This was yesterday. This was the first time that this has happened in a meaningful way in months. So it stands out to us. And I have a rule as a trader. Trading's all about rules and discipline. I have a rule where if that is happening, I do not look long on that day. I just throw the day away and say, I will not look long on the day if that is happening. And so, you see the S&P 500 on the right here and Trulieve on the left. we dumped because there was a sell-off in the S&P 500.
Yeah.
And, you know, could we have pulled back on the DeSantis headline and, you know, the Florida news or the New York news and things like that? Yeah, absolutely. But not to this magnitude. This was automated selling being triggered by massive automated selling happening in the broader market. So where we stand on Trulieve, let's just get to analysis on it. Again, you know, good sign to stop the bleeding. It was just magnified to the downs. There was no bid support. It was just, you know, that's the kind of thing where this is why people don't put big money in these names and why they would rather put big money in ACB. If I've got $1 million position, you know, I can exit ACB in an orderly fashion in 5 minutes. If I try and exit $1 million on TCNNF, I'm going to make the chart do that. That's millions of dollars exiting. There's just not the liquidity to support large positions. And that's why big money will stay away from OTC listed names. But daily inside bar, you know, we put a stop to the bleeding. That's a good sign. But also a little bit of a red flag. Just, you know, we could easily, it's the same thing that we saw on the Canadian side. The Canadian side, or I should say the higher listed side, confirmed the hourly downtrends today. And so into Monday, that's the question, is Trulieve, you know, we know an hourly lower high is the most likely scenario because anything under 1375 sets that hourly lower high. Do we confirm the hourly downtrend into daily consolidation to show us the tide is turning a little bit? The bulls had full control up until yesterday, and it's shifting a little bit. And so, again, it's just a little bit of a wake-up call. Oh, yeah, lack of liquidity. When fear hits, things drop hard, but at least putting a stop to the bleeding for today.
John Marker, I don't believe you can predict the irrational behavior of human investors. Most investors are emotionally driven. It's fun and entertaining, but not reliable using the past charts is what he writes. But at the end of the day, I think ultimately you've got to, care to comment on that?
Yeah, for me, that is exactly why I can use past emotional data, because human emotion is so predictable. It never changes. It's the same for hundreds of years in all these cycles. The fact that I've traded euphoria cycles in crypto 2 times, cannabis 3 or 4 times, going back to the penny stock days, 2021 euphoria in GameStop and all these names. These are the same patterns repeating themselves. And I know when to take my profit into euphoria. You know, I view myself as a euphoria specialist as a trader, capitalizing on hype markets. And making money in euphoria markets is not what sets me apart from other traders. And it's not what set me apart in Cannabis 2018. Keeping my gains is what set me apart. And it was because I had the past experience of previous euphoria cycles that told me I need to be selling into this move. I'm not looking for CGC to be have a monopoly on Canadian cannabis and be a blue chip stock. I'm selling into euphoria. And it's because that the human emotions are so predictable that I have been able to consistently profit over the last 13 years as a trader. And that's why technical analysis is useful.
Yeah. Paisley and a few others giving you a thumbs up based on that response. That was great. Next up after Trulieve, I think we saw Tilray, was it? And the Cannabis are the other 2 charts that I think people wanted to see.
So Tilray, I mean, you're seeing the correlation, obviously, between all these higher listed names. They're all doing the same thing to a certain degree. You can say HITI has relative strength. You can say, whoever has relative weakness, but they're all doing the same thing. They set a top yesterday. They saw a morning bounce first thing to set an hourly lower high, and then they broke the low of yesterday to start daily consolidation. So I like when things are that correlated because, my analysis, I give the analysis of one name, CGC, and it applies for everything. So we're approaching hourly oversold. Does hourly oversold set a daily higher low? Bulls next week will have to be cautious of a potential head and shoulders pattern. I'll be talking about that in a weekend video that I put out tomorrow. But it's, the bears are clearly in short-term control after that profit-taking day yesterday. That's not surprising. And we're watching for hourly oversold, which is quickly approaching.
Yeah. Last chart, the Cannabis. This is a company that has some great assets in key states, but they feel it's lacking behind some of its peers within the industry. I think there's a lot of investors want this company in stock to win, but what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, it's the dollar volume. I mean, the reason, again, the fact that you're on the OTC, the reason that all these higher listed names are so correlated and they're all doing the same thing is because automated trading systems are linked up. People are establishing bots and algos to look at these peers and to act and make trading decisions based on what, maybe CGC, the leader, is doing or things like that. You don't have that in the OTC. You don't have enough liquidity to have the same kind of automated systems that lead to significant correlations. And so, I look at CBSTF and its average daily volume, it's putting up $500,000 a day. That's nowhere near enough volume for me. We don't do this, but in the Chart Guys trading community, we could, as a group, do whatever we want with the price of CBSTF because of how low volume it is. We can easily put together, a couple $1 million and have it have the highest volume day in weeks or months, just and do whatever we want. And when something is that low volume, knowing how this game works, it's just too susceptible to groups, doing whatever they want with the price.
Yeah.
But, that's one of the major reasons why it's not performing is there's no volume. People aren't buying it. Granted, a lot of people aren't selling it either, but there's just no market for significant capital right now. And so daily inside bar, same as, a lot of the U.S. names right now. Bulls really want to hold the low of yesterday as long as possible on all the U.S. names. And so that level is, 30 cents essentially. And, bigger picture, if we're going to see things turn around, remember when we were looking at MSOS, we got to change the weekly trend. We got to change the monthly trend. It took a lot of time. Right now, we just came down and hit new all-time lows. And so we're starting from scratch on the trends. We need to bounce for weeks. We need to confirm a weekly uptrend. We need to bounce for months. We need to confirm a monthly uptrend. It took MSOS, 3 months to put together a monthly uptrend, 3 or 4 months. And so anytime you're back at square one, hitting a new all-time low, it's just, I look at this chart and the clear monthly downtrend for years, there's just nothing telling me to go long yet. MSOS gave us a bottoming pattern. It double bottomed down at the all-time low, and we just don't have that on this name at this point.
That's a big dose of reality when you highlight basically the daily volume and like what your group could potentially do and give it the biggest volume, it's had in weeks, but that's just the reality of being on an OTC right now. But the reasons why we're in Washington next week to push the narrative forward, to hopefully get some safe banking feedback, and when that all sits, because that would be huge for companies like CBSTF. Any other charts that you guys want us to cover, Guap or Anthony?
I'm good with those names. Those are all the big movers that I wanted to see from this week.
Yeah.
On the U.S. side, this is MSOS right now. So on the U.S. side, we're looking for an hourly lower high as the most likely scenario. We measure fib retracements to help us determine probabilities. If we do not clear 382, then it's a potential bear flag, looking for daily consolidation into next week. If I'm a bull, I want to see 50% plus retracement, which means over 1010 to create the space for an hourly trend change to try and take place. So we use Fibonacci retracement levels on both pullbacks and on bounces to help us determine most likely scenarios. And if you Google Chart Guys fibs or Fibonacci, there's a whole video explaining that.
Something I'm going to roll into, because that was going to be my next question, but I won't alarm you or basically delay any more of your time. But that was, obviously helpful for what you presented here today. But for more information for terms like that and to learn more, as we've always said every single week, where can people learn to find out more information, Dan?
Chartguys.com, at ChartGuys on Twitter. And again, we have so much free content on our YouTube and on our website. Go to our website and use the search feature. If you type Fibonacci's, you'll get an article, you'll get a video. And again, if you want to be a full-time trader, you got to put in 10,000 hours. But if you want to understand trends, if you want to understand risk management, if you want to have a little bit more control and not be a leaf blowing in the wind to the flashing numbers, you can put in a couple hundred hours and understand how markets work a lot more clearly.
Yeah. Paisley, we brought up the Tilray chart, probably what was that, 5 minutes ago?
Yeah.
Anyway, just scroll back once this video is uploaded, but you'll be able to see it. We always get this question every single week. They want to know where you get this chair, Dan.
The chair that I've got?
What's that?
This is falling apart. I need a new chair. Although it does look like, I've gotten many times, it looks like a pirate hat when I don't have headphones on. I block it out. It's like a big pirate hat. So we've had some fun with some. We've had some fun with some Photoshop where we'll put a parrot on my shoulder and.
Oh my God!
I'm never not going to be able to see that now.
When I had a black hat, I had an Aurora hat that was black, and I would put it on backwards, and it fits right into the chair back.
Yeah.
Oh, give me my gold, right, Dan?
Exactly.
All right, listen, appreciate you always checking in, and we'll catch back with you next week. We'll have some feedback for you and our audience once we're back from Washington. But as usual, appreciate you checking in.
Absolutely. Have a great weekend, guys.
All right, thanks, Dan. What a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
Gonna have to start doing
great chair.
Yeah, that's hilarious. That definitely looked like a pirate with the headphones off. But
It's like a gamer chair. That's kind of what it looks like to me.
yeah, I thought he handled that question really well too. But learned a few things, I think, each and every week as we get to know him more and the segment more, and just some of the stuff that continues to move. But as always, great having him on. To our viewers out there, if there's anything that we missed, if there's any questions, your feedback, smash that like button and leave lots of comments. We'll get back to you best we can. Any questions, any charts that you want to learn more of. We very much appreciate all the feedback. So smash that like button and leave lots of comments. Our middle guy just left the camera shot, so I have an idea as to what's up next. It's everyone's favorite time of the week, Fridays. It's time for Mic Drops with Bob. Bob, come on in. Whoa, what do we got here today?
All right.
You gonna wear that for mic drops on the street?
I'm waiting for for the DEA decision. This is my my squid hat. I think of these as dreads.
Okay.
Extra crazy costume today. So yeah, I'm gonna keep it real short. We tried to keep this show to 30 minutes, and look what happened, guys.
At
we
42.
talked about cannabis consumption for
It's
10
impossible.
and Nick freaking out in the backgrounds, but it was a lot of fun. Good show. Yeah, so I just want it real quick. I start every day with a walk in the forest. The pines release the most anti-inflammatory pinene, which is a terpene, in the mornings. So if everyone likes to say, pinene and terpenes and all these different myrcene and all these terpenes, they like to talk about in cannabis, but these terpenes are all around us. So just a morning walk in the forest can really just the exercise, the breathing, the no phone, the pinene release, it can really help. That's what they call forest bathing, right? The sun's providing vitamin D. It's helping kickstart your circadian rhythm to let you wind down at the end of the day. And the cold exposure, I tend to underdress for these walks in the winter. It wakes you up. There's a whole cold plunge craze going on too. So honestly,
right now.
Yeah, these morning walks are both recreational and medicinal, right? So there was a lot of debate on Twitter. My friend Livy was polling people, and it was a bit of an engagement bait just to get the discussion started about cannabis. Is it medical? Is it recreational? Is it both? For a lot of people, it's both. So is a morning walk. So get that morning hike in and stop. Learn something from the Stoics and stop worrying about all the things you can't control and take control of the things you can.
Stay in the moment and be grateful, right, sir?
That's it.
When you have mindfulness.
Yeah.
When you have gratitude, your life changes instantly.
It's turning into a different podcast, but yes, I'd like to be a part of that one too.
I love it, buddy. All right, this has been Mic Drops with Guap. Brought to you by, I don't know, be good. Monday, we'll be back. Should we do the podcast in the dark? Solar eclipse will be kicking off around the live stream. Maybe we do the podcast in the dark. I don't know. Make sure you bring your sunglasses. Maybe we should do the podcast outside.
Outside?
Outside. What do you think? With our shades on.
No.
Okay. That was done. Gents, we'll see you Monday. Thanks so much. Like, subscribe,
Inhale the good shit.
leave comments, please.
Inhale the good shit.
Reminding
Exhale the
you,
bullshit.
it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel